Have you ever had an idea that made your heart beat a little faster? On a quiet evening, you lie there, thinking that your life could be different. You picture a better version of yourself. The next morning, you tell someone about it. You tell your family. You tell your friends. Sometimes you even tell a stranger you just met. They smile. They nod. They tell you that you're capable, that you have ambition. And in that moment, it feels like you've already taken a step forward. But a few days later, something strange happens. The excitement slows down. The energy fades. The idea that once kept you awake now sits quietly in a corner of your mind. This story begins with a simple question. Why does talking about our dreams too much make it harder to begin? When words come before action, and the mind receives a sense of completion too early, we feel recognized before we've done the real work. And that satisfaction slowly weakens the fire inside. In a small village, where life moves quietly and change rarely arrives all at once, a young man is about to learn this lesson in his own way. Ethan is a young man with a vivid imagination and endless plans. One week, he talks about opening a small shop. The next, he wants to learn pottery. Not long after that, he dreams of building a house with his own hands. Each new idea fills him with excitement. Every time he believes this one will be different. But instead of starting, Ethan walks around the village, telling everyone about it. He speaks loudly, often, and with pride. People listen, they clap, they encourage him, they offer kind words. In those moments, Ethan feels important, as if he's already close to success. But when night passes and morning comes, everything changes. The energy disappears. The excitement fades. The work never truly begins. And so the dreams keep changing, while Ethan's life stays exactly where it is. Time passes quietly. One season follows another. Ethan's life remains unchanged. He is still full of ideas, and still someone who hasn't finished anything. Each time a new idea appears, the pattern repeats. Ethan talks. People listen. They encourage him. And then it stops there. At first, Ethan doesn't see a problem. He tells himself he just needs more time. That one day, everything will fall into place. But deep inside, a heavy feeling begins to grow. Each time he sees others moving forward, each time he hears someone speak about what they've completed, Ethan feels left behind. He begins to doubt himself, not because he lacks ability, but because he doesn't understand why he always stops before he starts. The compliments that once made him happy now feel empty. They echo in his mind, then disappear, leaving nothing behind. And in the silence of long evenings, Ethan sits with a single question. Why do I have so many dreams, yet my life remains still? One late afternoon, as the sun sinks behind the old rooftops, Ethan sits alone near the stone well at the edge of the village. No one else is around, only the wind and the weight of his thoughts. It's the kind of silence that forces you to face yourself. An older man walks over and sits beside him. He doesn't ask much. He doesn't rush to speak. Everyone in the village knows him as someone who lives quietly, works steadily, and rarely gives advice. But when he does speak, people listen. After a while, he asks why Ethan looks so tired. For the first time in a long while, Ethan is honest. He talks about unfinished dreams, about starting with hope, then slowly giving up, about not understanding what's wrong with him. The man nods slowly. He doesn't criticize. He asks only one question. When a new idea comes to you, What do you do first? Ethan answers without hesitation. I tell people. The man smiles gently. Come to my garden tomorrow morning. There's something I want to show you. If this part of the story speaks to you, feel free to comment one. The next morning, Ethan arrives at the small garden behind the old man's house. The garden is quiet and neatly kept. Nothing about it stands out. The old man is already there, holding 2 small seeds in his hand. He places one seed into Ethan's palm and asks him to dig a small hole in the soil. Ethan does as he's told, carefully placing the seed inside and covering it with earth. The man says nothing more. He simply nods. Then he lifts the second seed high into the air and calls over a few children playing nearby. He tells them this seed will one day grow into a beautiful tree, a tree everyone will see. The children laugh, they clap, they gather around him. The man places the seed on a flat stone, right where sunlight hits it all day. Then he turns and walks away, as if nothing important has happened. For in the days that follow, Ethan returns to the garden. The old man quietly waters the spot where the seed was buried. He doesn't mention it. He doesn't show it to anyone. Meanwhile, the seed left on the stone remains exposed. Sun, wind, and time passing over it, unchanged. Days pass. Ethan stops by the garden often, sometimes just to stand and watch. The old man continues his routine. He waters the covered soil. He says nothing about it. No one in the village knows what's happening there. Then one morning, Ethan notices a small green sprout pushing through the earth. It's fragile, but real. Day by day, it grows. The old man remains silent. He cares for it as if no one ever needs to see it. Meanwhile, the seed left on the stone has dried out. Birds peck at it. The wind scatters what little remains. Nothing is left. Standing beside Ethan, the old man finally speaks. A seed needs darkness to begin, he says slowly. It needs protection while it's still weak. If it's placed under everyone's eyes too early, it never gets the chance to grow. Ethan looks at the small plant, then at the empty stone. He says nothing. But inside him, something begins to make sense. And if you've ever watched a dream disappear this way, you may understand why some people choose to keep certain things to themselves. If this part feels familiar, you can comment one. The old man stands quietly for a moment, allowing Ethan to absorb what he's seen. Then he speaks again. The seed wasn't weak, he says. The problem wasn't the seed. It was placed in the wrong place, at the wrong time. He explains that when someone talks about a dream too early, the mind receives the feeling that the work is already done. Praise brings instant satisfaction. It gives us recognition before we've taken real action. And once that feeling settles in, the motivation to keep working slowly disappears. Ethan listens in silence. Every word feels uncomfortably familiar. Each time he announced a plan, he felt successful for a brief moment. But afterward, there was no strong reason left to begin again. Quietly, patiently, from the start. He realizes he had confused being seen with actually creating something. He enjoyed praise more than the long, slow process of real work. The truth makes him uncomfortable, but it also brings relief. At last, he understands why he always stopped before he began. That evening, Ethan walks home more slowly than usual. The familiar road feels strangely quiet. There are no big plans in his head, No promises waiting to be spoken aloud. Only one small, simple thought. He decides to try something different. Not a big dream, just one clear task. Ethan chooses to make a small wooden chair, and this time he tells no one, no announcements, no watching eyes. Each evening, after the day's work is done, Ethan sits quietly with wood and tools. Some days he feels motivated. Some days he's tired and wants to stop. But because no one knows, he doesn't need to prove anything. He only needs to continue. The chair slowly takes shape. It's not perfect, but it's real. Ethan makes mistakes, learns, and keeps going. For the first time, he feels himself moving forward, even though no one is watching. If you're quietly working on something right now, something you haven't told anyone about, feel free to comment one. One morning, Ethan places the finished chair outside his home to dry in the sun. He doesn't think much of it. It's simply part of a completed task. A neighbor passing by stops and looks at the chair for a long moment. He asks when Ethan made it. Ethan smiles and says he worked on it during his free evenings. No long story, no explanation. The neighbor nods, as if he understands something. From that day on, Ethan continues working in silence. A small table, then a bookshelf. Each piece is finished before anyone knows it exists. By the time people begin to notice, Ethan no longer needs their attention. Gradually, the village comes to know him not for his promises, but for what stands right in front of them. His work speaks for him. And in that change, Ethan discovers a new feeling. Not the brief excitement of praise, but the deeper satisfaction that comes from truly completing something. Ethan's story isn't about giving up on dreams. It's about how we treat them. Some things are too fragile at the beginning. They don't need attention. They need time, patience, and quiet evenings no one sees. When we speak too early, we trade real effort for recognition. We feel like we've moved forward, even though our hands haven't moved at all. But when we stay silent and keep working, small steps begin to add up. No noise, no rush, just progress. Ethan didn't become a different person overnight. He changed just one thing. He let action come before words, and that changed everything. Somewhere in your life, there may be a seed like that too. Something you haven't spoken about, something you're quietly working on. If so, let it grow in silence. When it's strong enough, it will show itself. You won't need to explain. If this story stays with you a little longer, feel free to share it with someone who might need to hear it. And if you'd like to keep listening to quiet stories like this, you're always welcome to come back. Thank you for being here and for listening until the end.